Welcome to the Business of Property podcast. I'm Simon.
I'm Stuart.
We're both property people running our own businesses. This podcast is just us chatting, as we often do, about anything and everything property. So I think today we're going to have a bit of a chat about how we manage time and our limited resource of life.
Yeah.
And you had a question to start us off, I think, Stuart.
Well, yeah, given that, New Year optimism can sometimes fade a little. So, I'm talking from personal experience because we all get pumped up and January comes by and then we realise that the new year looks very similar to the previous year in terms of the things we have to do with families and work and everything else. And so the question was around focus. And I guess my question to you, just before we hit the record button, was, how do you manage your time? We talk about work-life balance, or some might now say work-life integration, which I sort of subscribe to. But how do you manage your time? Because I think it's a big question, particularly for people in property, when your time is becoming more your own. So I'll leave that open-ended question with you.
Well, I can probably answer it in one word, and I think that word is badly. It's my time management or time balancing between the different things that are pulling on that time is a constant challenge for me personally, and I tend to rethink it around the change of each year, and I tweak my previous plan and then mostly fail to stick to it again. So it's a constant challenge. I do try to be aware of where my time is going and manage it sensibly, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Do you use any tools to work out where your time's going, or other, calendar? And
I'm a bit of a weirdo in so much as I track my
no comment.
Just in this one isolated area, I assure you. I actually track my time 24/7. So I use a free app called Toggle.
Well, that's what I was thinking. And Toggle.
So lots of people use that for tracking work time and billing and stuff like that. But I actually track all of my time. So I record how long it takes me to have a shower in the morning. I record how long it takes me to have lunch.
Weird, yeah.
Thank you for that reassurance. I've been doing this for years now, actually, and I have all that data. And one of the things I don't do as much as I should is actually look back on that data and work out what it's telling me and how I can improve it. I do this a bit, but I don't do it nearly as much or as thoroughly as I should.
I joke, but I do think it is really good, because I think it's one of those things. So, but how do you manage? So, how do you track your shower time? You come out and you're just so habitual about entering it into the phone that's what you do. Yeah,
it's not quite as precise as actually the seconds I spend in the shower. So I have a sort of record, whatever, and a label for getting ready in the morning. So it's a little bit more vague. So I'll set that going, go upstairs, shave, have a shower, get dressed. I'll probably dry first, get dressed and sort of get ready for the day generally. And that will all be lumped together. So and I have an app on my phone. I don't actually like the Toggle app itself. I have an accompanying app with it that makes switching between tasks a little bit quicker. Before I start getting ready, switch to that item, and then when I finish getting ready, I switch to the next item, whether that's checking my email or helping with the children or whatever it may be that comes next, and just carry on.
And as you said, the important thing is then to look at it, to measure it.
And that's where I do fall down a bit. There was a while ago, I did notice that I was spending a lot of time playing a game. So this was a game on a mobile phone, and it's structured such that you have to come back every X hours to get the next bonus or the next reward or whatever, and you log in or open the app, do those few things, takes 5 minutes. You think that was only 5 minutes, but because I tracked those 5 minutes, I swapped to to recording that I was playing a game and then stopped away again, at the end of the week and the end of the month, I could look back and say, actually, crikey, I spent a day playing that game. And yeah, it was only 5 minutes at a time, but it's a day. That's a lot of time. And I decided that I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to be spending that time on that game, which didn't because it was such a short amount of time. You don't get to get into the game. You didn't get to sort of have the sort of prolonged enjoyment that I often associate with the computer games that I played when I was younger. So decided I didn't want to do it based on that information, and I have now largely kicked the habit.
But I think that's so good, because I would imagine most people wouldn't have done that, and you've acknowledged that actually just that little thing that I do every now and again is a day a month, and you've made the conscious decision. Actually, that's not how I want to spend a day, and I think that's a really powerful thing that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do. I mean, I do obviously similar things myself in terms of playing a game. Some weeks it doesn't happen, but every now and again I think, well, why shouldn't I just have a bit of mental downtime because of the amount of stuff we do? But I think it's because then you're making a choice, aren't you? You can then make the choice. If you're playing a game and you want downtime, fine, do it. I think we should, but at least you can then say, actually, instead of playing the game, I'll read a book. Or
yeah, I should clarify, I'm not anti-computer games at all. What I decided I object to is the style of game that pulls you in just for very short bits of time and makes you sort of feel that you're not spending time on it. I'd much rather consciously say, actually, I'd rather spend 2 hours at a time playing a computer game that I can really get into and really enjoy and perhaps involve my children as well, or some other person. So there's a bit more sort of prolonged enjoyment from that activity, rather than these little tiny snippets.
But I think the important thing for me on this subject, and this is the reason why we have this conversation, is the intentionality, because then you've got the intention. So if it's habitual, or if it's almost subconscious, if you're just pulling out the phone because you say, the time's up and I just need to just log in quickly, then it becomes a second nature. And for me, it's about intentionality. And I guess my thing around that, and it's funny, I've got Toggle. Talking to you has generally reminded me, right, I'm going to start using that again because I need to start measuring. Because, like you, doing different things on different days. Some of them might be planning for coaching the football team on Saturday. Some might just be doing a little bit of consultancy work. And some days I just feel like I am just running to the next plate that wobbles. And I know a lot of people would feel like that, especially when you're working, you've got a job, you've got families, and so on and so forth. But I found that intentionality can help with that. So if I say, well, Monday morning that's the morning where I plan for my football training session, and then I go on to next work, if that's intentional, I don't feel like I've... It might be on a Monday, typical Mondays. If I don't plan my week on the Sunday night or write down, okay, this is exactly what I want to achieve on Monday, and it might just be 2 things, and everything else might just be knee-jerk reactions to emails, but as long as those 2 things get done, then I feel like I've had a productive day.
Yeah, so this is sort of moving a bit on from recording what happens to trying to make a plan for what should happen. So how do you plan your time looking forwards? You mentioned a little bit there.
Yeah, well, like you, I do it badly. I think I have to be honest about that. It's an ongoing thing, but a year or so ago I read a book called The Bullet Journal, which made me a lot more intentional. Which is really good for just writing down. And for me, there's a big power for me personally of writing things down. From the mind through the pen into the book. I don't have that many apps, and I do like using the computer. But for some reason, when I write it down, for me, there's just more of a resonance and again more intentionality. So for me, the big one is actually being able to plan. If I plan that week, then I'm a lot more productive.
What's your process for planning a week?
Well, as you know, I was going to say that. So what links to that is working a 12-week year. So we know the 12-week year quite well. So it's really starting at the highest level. What is it I'm trying to achieve? That might start... I've never been one of these people that can do 10-year... I just can't. I've tried it, and for some reason I can't get out as far as 10 years.
10 years is a very long time. A lot changes in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I even struggle with 5. I mean, I can probably do 5 because it feels near. which is why the 12-week year really works for me, because I can think about the next year and I can think, okay, at the end of 2020, what do I really want to achieve? And then that's my big goal. So I'll set that big goal, and for me that year is 12 weeks. So I'll set that big goal, and then obviously we chunk that down into weeks, and knowing what I want from each week. So some weeks it might just be one thing that needs to happen. It could just be, I need to arrange for renewed mortgages with a broker for that first week, and that's then how I plan. So the Sunday night's okay, as long as we achieve that goal. But that's just in one area. Of course, there are many areas of life, but it's being clear on those goals and then planning that for the week ahead, and then that's how I set the intention. And the thing that I always think about, I don't know if you've ever seen that video clip of the lecturer. He takes the big jar and he puts the jar in front of the class, and then he kind of puts a load of, sort of fairly big stones into the jar, and he just says to the class, is there any room left in this jar? And they kind of say, well, no, not really. And he says, well, okay. And then he gets a bag of marbles, pours the marbles on, and they sort of drop through the gaps. And he says, is there any room left in here now? And they say, no, definitely not. And he says, okay. And then he gets some sand, and he pours the sand in, and of course that fills up all the remaining gaps, and of course they've now got it. And he says, do you think there's any room left? And everyone sort of doesn't know, and he goes, actually there is. And then he pours water on the top, and that still goes in. And that really resonated with me, because back in corporate land, before I retrained myself, I'd always do the little things first. But it's those little things. So if you poured the water in first, there wouldn't have been any room. Or if you poured the sand in first, which in my head are the little things, there wouldn't be any room left for the big things. And actually, when we're honest with ourselves, the big things are the most important things. So why do we naturally put the big things off? We procrastinate and put the big things off. So now I make intention, okay, what's my big thing? And I'll do that first, and then I'll respond to everyone's brain farts and emails that they send on email. But
how do you define big thing? Is that sort of the thing you expect to take longest, or the thing that is most important?
Definitely most important. Yeah, time's not the factor. It's what's most important. I mean, if it's so big that it can't be done in 2 hours or whatever that task is, then of course you're going to have to chunk that down, to use that terminology. Yeah, exactly. But for me, the big thing, I mean, I'll use a real example. So my big thing this year, so as simple as it sounds, I need to make sure that I'm in full occupancy, or just work on as close to that as possible, and that my costs are reduced. Then under that, obviously, I have to work out the actions that need to be taken. Now, so in terms of occupancy, the team works on that in terms of the lettings agents, that I've got multiple of those, advertising and that kind of thing. So the action is actually a weekly action. Now on a Monday morning, my first call is I remind everyone that I'm here. What's the plan? What are we doing? That's a big thing. Reduction of cost. What's the big thing there? Well, again, we have to break that down. What's the biggest single thing affecting cost? Well, the first thing is mortgage, and then it's utilities, and then it's X, and then it's Y, and then it's Z. So mortgage, okay, so my first action is I need to review all of my mortgages and all of my mortgage terms. And we've talked about only I need to use PATMA to remind me of that, so I have to think less. So they're the big things. What the big thing is, the most important thing in relation to the goal that I'm trying to achieve.
Yep. So when you're actually planning on a more granular level, when you get down to your weeks and your days, do you time block? Do you allocate time for these things, or do you have a to-do list that you work through, or how does it work on a practical level?
So I haven't yet got to time blocking, and I think that is, for me, that's the goal, is to get to time blocking. I've tried it. I haven't got there yet because of the multitude of things I do. So I haven't got there yet. The 12-week year tends to break the actions down into the smallest component parts anyway, into the week. So they'll be set. And the bullet journal as well, I'll set those actions for the day or the week, and they'll be prioritised. The big ones have stars next to them, so I know that they'll just be again, to coin another phrase, I'll swallow the frog, and the ones with asterisks, even if I don't want to do them, they'll just be the first ones I do. But ultimately what I want to do is the time blocking, because that for me, that's the most intentional you can get, is actually your day has already been planned. And when we talk about time blocking, it would still be 2 hours for my big task, and then there might just be half an hour to deal with randomness.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the goal, because I still get a bit too reactive if my phone rings. I mean, sometimes I switch it off to flight mode now, I'm getting better, but I think it's a
difficult thing. So I have been trying to time block for a while, and I'm doing it again. I've refreshed my my efforts in this area. So I do every weekend. I block out sections of my following week into different tasks, or at least different topics of task. But then actually implementing it on a day-to-day basis is still difficult.
That's the challenge.
Because I have a to-do list as well, and balancing between the block that it says in my calendar and this urgent thing on my to-do list, which isn't in that block, is always tricky. Especially when you have somebody shouting at you, or metaphorically shouting at you in an email that's super urgent and whatever else, but your email time block isn't for another 3 or 4 hours. do you deal with that and get that done, or do you actually manage to push it away and leave it? It's tricky, and I haven't mastered that yet.
If we were black belts, the answer would be no, you wouldn't do it. We're obviously not black belts yet, but I think that's the important thing. And the other thing I heard that I really liked, and I've talked about it on my podcast on Executive Juice recently, is the point is, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And that's kind of where this conversation, the idea came from, because we talked about this off air, where, my goal this year is to say no to as many things as I can. I said no to a couple, and then I kind of said yes to something yesterday. But it's going to be a no now, because I've checked myself. But if your most important thing, you've thought about the week ahead, you've time blocked, and that's your most important thing, just because someone's emailed you with something urgent. And the other point is when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Whether that's, if you say yes to more work and you're saying no to time with the kids, or you're saying yes to somebody else's priority. And that's the other thing I've learned. And again, I'm going to be honest, I haven't yet put into practice, but I really, really agree with and want to, is that the inbox is full of other people's priorities, not yours.
Yeah. Very good. Good description of it, yeah. But yeah, just mentioning black belts, I do actually have a black belt. Not in time management. Just it's in judo.
Oh, good. I'm glad I haven't insulted you to any great degree so far.
It's okay. I haven't been practicing for over a decade, so I think you're pretty safe.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I should have thought of that one for your executive juice question on things not many people know about me.
Yeah, we'll have to get you on again. But I think I think we've talked a fair amount around time management, and we set 20 minutes for this podcast. So if we were going to live what we say, we'd have, not long left.
We'll have to say the outro very, very quickly. Well, I guess we should now bring this to a close then.
Yeah, very good.
So where can people find show notes, Stuart?
As always, just go to thebusinessofproperty.com, where all of the show notes and any interesting links that we can remember or think of will appear on that page as well.